What if I told you that Yuta was holding back tremendously against Sukuna, so much so that if he wanted to, he really could have ended Sukuna right then and there when he was actually fighting him inside of his domain expansion. Everyone knows that Sukuna is holding back, but for some reason nobody recognizes that Yuta is holding back just as much, if not more, than Sukuna, and has a tremendous power hidden deep within that we already know about, but that he only kept locked away to not kill Megumi. Today we will be discussing Yuta's current full power and full strength, and why Yuta will come back to do major damage against Sukuna with his true full power. So if you're a Yuta fan, this video is for you. So hey, be sure to leave a like on the video, it helps out a lot, thank you. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content just like this. Less than 10% of people who actually watch my videos are subscribed, so if you love JJK, I promise you, you won't regret subscribing. And of course, thank you to the special grade members of the channel, it is much appreciated. Alright, let's get right into this. And before I even talk about Yuta's full power, which I guarantee you, it is insane how much power he's holding back, first it's important to discuss, is Yuta even alive? And yes, this is for some reason a debated about topic. I mean, I don't blame people for being too confused, because even Maki questions if Yuta's alive, so let me break this down in some actual depth here. Now, one of the most important topics that we have to tackle is, was Sukuna even using the world-ending slash against Yuta? And this has only become a discussion because we found out the current binding vow activations needed for the world-ending slash. So let me just quote the narrator here. In order to activate the broad targeting world-severing dismantle, so the world-ending slash, the same hand sign used for Malevolent Shrine, Enma 10, was required. However, with only one arm remaining prior to his transformation, Sukuna was forced to impose a binding vow to the activation conditions for all preceding uses of the move in order to cut down Satoru Gojo. Presently, on top of both the Enma 10 hand sign and chance being required, the trajectory of the technique must be specified with his palm. So to break that down for you, to activate the world-ending slash, originally all Sukuna needed to do was use the Enma 10 hand sign, which is his domain hand sign as you can see on the screen, and he would have been able to activate the world-ending slash. But do remember, after the hollow purple from Gojo, Sukuna was missing an entire hand, and his reverse curse technique output was heavily damaged, so he couldn't heal it. He needed both hands to make the hand signs to fire off the world-ending slash. So what he did is he made a binding vow to forever make the activation conditions for the world-ending slash much harder. So on top of the hand sign, which is all he needed before, now he has to do chants. He has to specify with his palm and pointing with his finger on who he actually wants to fire the world-ending slash at. This is an insane nerf, by the way. So before this, Sukuna could have fired off world-ending slashes like it was an absolute joke, because all he needed was the Malevolent Shrine hand sign, but now it's a lot harder to use it. But why am I talking about this? Why is this important to Yuta and if he's alive or not? Well, people have now looked back on Yuji and Yuta versus Sukuna and questioned, how was Sukuna even able to pull off this world-ending slash if his hands were being held by Rika? Because as you can see, two of Sukuna's hands were chopped off and the other two were held by Rika. What's probably going on is that there was a moment off screen, and this specific moment was while Yuji was talking to Megumi in the soul, so some time must have taken place there, and also the time when Sukuna was saying the chants of Scalar the Dragon, Recoil, and Twin Meteors. During that time that we didn't see Sukuna at all, he must have somehow freed his hands from Rika and proceeded to make the chants with his mouth and also do the hand signs with his remaining two hands. Some people are confused, saying, wait, doesn't Sukuna need to do the hand signs and thus point with his palm and fingers who he wants to fire the world-ending slash at? But the thing is, it was never said that he needs to do it all at the same time. All it said was to activate, he needs to do the chants and the hand signs, and then he needs to fire off with his fingers and palms. It was never explicitly said that it needs to be done at the same time. So what probably happened is, as Sukuna was chanting, he did the hand sign, and once his chant was done, he could thus point to his palm and fingers at who he wants to fire the world-ending slash at. And as we see very clearly, he is pointing with his fingers and his palms facing towards Yuta, the world-ending slash. So Rika was the one who fumbled here, surprisingly, and people like to blame Megumi. This is why we specifically see that Yuta is cut cleanly in half. We see his hand was cut off and his entire body was cut in half as well. But with Yuji, it didn't go all the way through. It was very likely a very deep cut for Yuji, but the reason it didn't go all the way through is because for Yuji, it wasn't the world-ending slash. For it to cut the very world itself and to be a world-severing dismantle, the palm must be pointing towards that specific person for that dismantle to cut the world. Because it was only pointing at Yuta and not Yuji at the time, that is why it didn't count as a world-ending slash against Yuji, and it's why Yuji was able to heal up while Yuta needed to go to the emergency room to heal up. But in my own opinion, I do think Yuta's alive. There's no way he would have died, and GEGE would make it so vague. Speaking these words, I remember Nobara, how her death was so vague, and there's a chance she's alive, you know, where the Kyoto student kept reiterating to Yuji, it's not 0%, okay, there's a chance, don't get hopes up, but there's a chance. Now I'm starting to believe it's almost like that, isn't it? Wow, how it doesn't really show him dying as Rika's taking him back, and the fact that Rika was still manifested, we'll talk about this later, how she's tied to Yuta and she's a cursed technique, the fact that she was able to carry Yuta and not disappear means Yuta was alive, or Rika would vanish if Yuta were truly dead, and even Maki thinks, oh, Yuta may or may not be alive, so she thinks it's up in the air if he's dead or not. But in my own opinion, I do think Yuta's alive, alive, and I do think he'll come back. I pray to God this isn't another Nobita situation. I mean, he did Nobita so dirty. I'm really hoping he doesn't do Yuta that dirty. He loves Yuta. Yuta's the golden boy, so hopefully he doesn't do that to Yuta. Alright, but now let's talk about the meat and bones of the video. How strong is Yuta's full power, and how do I know that he's not using his full power? Well, there's two specific reasons. And the first one is the fact that Rika is currently not fully manifested. This entire fight, we saw Rika is only in a partially manifested state. And how do we know when Rika's fully or partially manifested? When Rika's only partially manifested, she has those black robes around her, that black cloak. We have seen this many times throughout the series, especially during Sendai Colony. However, when she fully manifests, there is a clear distinction where her whole body now becomes revealed. The cloak around her sort of becomes a tiny little tail, like a ghost tail, and you can now see her full body in clear visibility and not just her arms and face. What this means is that the entire time he was fighting Sukuna, Rika was only, yes, only in a partially manifested state from the very beginning to the very end of the fight. And Rika being fully manifested does make a big difference. We know for an absolute fact there is a difference in power and strength with Rika when she's fully manifested and when she's not fully manifested. Beside the fact that it's just logical that her full manifestation, where she's got access to her whole body now, she's just going to be stronger. The narrator says after Ryu punched her, a hit that was difficult to deal with even when fully manifested, Rika has reached her limit. The narrator here is implying really heavily, if not just confirming, there is a difference between partially manifested Rika and fully manifested Rika. Even if she were at her full power, the full manifestation, it still would have been a very tough hit for her. Once again, implying that her full manifestation is on a different level compared to a partially manifested state. What Yuta also loses access to when Rika's only partially manifested is the slew of cursed tools that Rika has in her arsenal. We don't know what cursed tools he may have, because in Sendai Colony he wasn't trying to kill Ryu and Uro for the points, and also because he does empathize with them, unlike Durov and Kuroshi, who he didn't, and you recognize they must die. Ryu and Uro didn't fall into this category, so he wasn't using any curse techniques that may have been lethal or deadly. We saw Rika had a plethora of offensive based curse tools, but what he chooses to put on is just the gauntlets on his arm, which isn't a lethal weapon. And this is only from what we knew back in Sendai. There has been a month and a half since then, so if Yuta collected all of the curse tools that the higher ups had in their storage because they killed them all, or maybe even the Zenin clans, their storage of curse tools, because we know the Zenin clan does have a storage of curse tools, because that was what Maki was originally going back to the Zenin clan for to begin with when she massacred her whole family, and from the Gojo clan as well, who would have a storage and warehouse of curse tools as all of the big clans should. And Gojo did come back, so he can give Yuta access to all of those to have Rika use as a storage. Raided the Kamo clan's curse tool storage and warehouse, and I mean, who's gonna stop them? It's a bunch of special grade sorcerers, including Gojo. If they just wanted to go in, take them, nobody's stopping them. So remember how Rika was performing against Sukuna the entire time? Imagine she could have been much stronger while fighting him the whole time, and this extra strength could have allowed her to hold Sukuna long enough so that he can't release his arms and fire off the world-ending slash, and just going deeper into the fight would have done more damage to Sukuna, she would have been more versatile, and it could have greatly helped in the fight. And Yuta would also have access to a lot of curse tools, and this could also go double for Yuji, who by being next to him would have access to those curse tools too. But there's also something that he only gets from fully manifested Rika and not partially manifested Rika, and that's the fact that Yuta obtains Rika's cursed energy for himself. So Yuta could have been flowing and oozing with cursed energy, specifically Rika's cursed energy, had she been fully manifested, but the entire time that he was fighting Sukuna, he was only using his own base cursed energy. And this is even getting into the fact that there is a possibility, and I will say this is only theoretical, so we don't know if this is true, unlike everything I said before, which is a fact, but in theory, Rika may have more to offer now after the time skip, perhaps even evolving to a completely different level in a fully manifested state. Why do I say this? Well, it's because Rika herself is a curse technique. There is a misconception in the fanbase that Yuta only has one curse technique. Some think it's Copy, some think it's Rika, but it has been directly said by the narrator that Yuta has two separate curse techniques. The first time is in chapter 178, where the narrator outright says Rika is Yuta's curse technique, which outright confirms Rika is Yuta's curse technique. That is his curse technique, there's no debating it, done and dusted, right? Well, later on during chapter 179, the narrator says Okotsu's technique has not yet replenished. At the same time, while the narrator is saying this, fully manifested Rika is out and right next to him as it was being said, which you may be confused, but isn't Rika's curse technique? How is Rika out when his curse technique is burnt out? Rika should have disappeared. Well, we get the final nail in the coffin in chapter 180, when the narrator says Okotsu's technique had fully recovered, and with it saying that, him activating Copy, directly confirming that Copy is his curse technique. So how can Yuta have two curse techniques? That doesn't make sense, right? Well, no, it makes perfect sense. You can have more than one curse technique. As a matter of fact, you can have up to 4 curse techniques at one time. This was said by Yuki, where she knows that Kenjaku has the gravity curse technique. Later we found out it was actually anti-gravity, that he has the body hopping curse technique, and also that he has curse spirit manipulation. Yet, even after saying this, and even after saying saying if he has too many curse techniques, his brain will bust. Right after she says that in the same panel, she says he may have a 4th curse technique he got from Uzumaki, but no more than that, only just one other curse technique. And we do have an inverse example of someone having 4 curse techniques, again, Kenjaku. During Shibuya, he had 4 curse techniques activated at the same time. He had curse spirit manipulation on his brain, the body hopping curse technique, anti-gravity, which he never gave up because if he gives it up, the curse technique's gone forever because he has no storage like Rika, and he did take Mahito's ideal transfiguration, and even if it was just for a one-time use, he still had that curse technique on his brain. So in that moment during Shibuya, he had 4 curse techniques. Though we know any more than that, your brain would bust. And we know Sukuna also had 2 curse techniques on one body. He had the 10 shadows and he had his own cleave and dismantle, and that's lowballing Sukuna. He could have more curse techniques like the flame. We don't know what that is yet. My point is, if Rika herself is a curse technique, we know curse techniques can grow and become stronger if you train with them. Yuta is still a fresh sorcerer. He's only been a sorcerer for over a year, and over the past month, we've seen characters have gone tremendously more powerful. I mean, just look at Yuji, Kusakabe, Ino. They have skyrocketed, and Yuta even says to train, we cheated. So if Yuta himself has gotten stronger, who's to say his curse technique hasn't vastly improved as well? And we still haven't seen him use the full manifestation of his curse technique, Rika. And this isn't even getting into the fact that he was holding back against Sukuna to not kill him, because the whole point of the plan was they just wanted to free Megumi and to injure the soul enough that Yuji could interact with it and maybe put Megumi back in control. For a sure hit, Yuta could have chosen to put Malevolent Shrine. Since that is a curse technique that he's copied, he could have chosen to put any other lethal curse technique in there, and you can even argue that he stopped using Jacob's Ladder after the maximum output specifically so that Yuji could interact with him, and if he wanted to, he could have continued firing Jacob's Ladder after he fired it that first time, choosing not to because A, they are not trying to kill Sukuna, and B, Yuji was in the vicinity and he needed Yuji to touch Sukuna, so he couldn't have fired it off again. So it's pretty funny because we know for a fact Sukuna is still holding a lot back, so he definitely wasn't going all out, but in Yuta's case, he was holding a lot back. The full manifestation of Rika making her stronger, giving Yuta access to a lot of cursed tools, a lot of deadly cursed tools, and also he never had access to any of Rika's cursed energy the entire time he fought Sukuna. And I want to clarify this now, I'm not saying he would have beaten Sukuna. I mean, it's not impossible since they did have Sukuna in a tight spot, so maybe Sukuna would have lost because he was holding back too much and he would have never gotten a chance to go all out, but maybe if Yuta was strong in the beginning, that could have actually forced Sukuna to go all out from the beginning as well, perhaps leading to a completely different fight. So I'm not saying he would have won, I'm simply saying just as how Sukuna was holding back, Yuta was also holding quite a lot back, more likely than not for the Megumi plan. But if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, it helps out a ton, thank you. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content just like this. Like I said in the intro, less than 10% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so if you love JJK, you won't forget subscribing. And of course, thank you to all the channel members as well, it is always much appreciated, guys. Thank you very much, but that's all from me. Have a great day and take care.